These ocean vibe nails feel like summer in a set. I'm breaking down this Gel X set step by step, so let's get into it. First up is prep. This step makes all the difference in how long your nails actually last. I'm using these BTArt box soft gel tips, and I like to prep the tips before my natural nails, so I'm not touching anything after primer and base coating my nails. I'm going to show you my rule of thumb for picking out the right size tip, especially when it seems like multiple will fit. When you size out your Gel X tips, make sure they fit from sidewall to sidewall with no gaps. That's the very side edge of your nail. Even if it doesn't fit your cuticle very well, sometimes it's just a matter of shaping it. I have more rounded cuticles, so I am just filing those squared corners so that it fits better, and now it fits my sidewalls and my cuticle perfectly. After I've picked out all my sizes, it's time to prep the tips for application. We want to remove the shine and add texture because if it's too smooth, it would pop off. So I'm using the BTArt box tip primer, which replaces having to use a drill to buff the nails and add texture. So scrub in the primer to mimic that texture, and that will make sure the glue adheres well and our tips last for a long time. The tips are all ready now, so we're gonna get our natural nails prepped. I'm pushing back my cuticles and scraping off any dead skin. I'm gonna use this thin sanding band to do the same thing we did with the tips, removing the shine and adding some light scratches. It's so important to make sure you get the perimeter of your nails, so I'm pulling the skin back around my sidewalls and I'm making sure I get all the way around. Once that's done with all my nails, I make sure I wipe it down with some alcohol and we're gonna prep. This is my ASP Dehydrator. It's going all over the nails. And then I'm gonna use the Young Nails Protein Bond as my primer. And then I'm gonna base coat using the BTArt box gel glue, and this is the same glue we're gonna use to adhere the Gel X nails. This icon means I'm curing in my big lamp for a minute, but I'm using this mini lamp to do the Gel X because it's adjustable and it clips to the table. Some tips I have for applying the gel in the tip is to put a layer of gel across the bottom of the tip and then scrape some extra. And I like to drag just a little bit up the center, and this is going to make sure that as we press the tip on, there's enough glue to reach the tip of my nail. So I push down at the cuticle first, and then I push that glue all the way up to the edge of the tip. You want to make sure you're maintaining that same pressure as you guide your hand over to the lamp because we don't want any air bubbles to form. That is one way for your nails to pop off. Also, try to avoid having spillage, anything seeping out of the tip, which is difficult. I'm still improving in putting in the right amount of glue, but practice makes perfect when it comes to that. I'm going to show you on my pinky a side angle of me applying the tip so you can see how I'm starting at a 45-degree angle. That tip is landing at the cuticle and I'm pressing the tip down until the gel pushes up towards the edge, and that is how I try to avoid air bubbles. So now we're going to do a full cure in the lamp since all the tips are on, and then we're going to start filing and shaping. I'm going for a pointed almond look, so I like to clip off the corners and kind of get that almond shape started. And then to perfect it, I'm going to file. Whenever I'm doing a rounded shape, I like to file underneath, and then I'm filing the sides because I want it to be nice and sharp. Now we're going to file the surface of the nails with that sanding band. Again, I pull my skin so that I can get to the sidewalls. At this point, I'm trying to remove any spillage that might have came out, and I'm also trying to thin out that cuticle area because I want it to look super flushed, so when it grows out, it looks natural, not bulky. And then we're removing the shine from the nail. And I did that to all 5 of my nails and then removed that dust. And I want to be clear, you do not have to use a drill. You could easily use a hand file and really get into those cuticles. The thing that will really make sure you have a nice long lasting set is to use some acetone like I am right now to go around the cuticle. What that's going to do is melt the tip just so slightly so that it seals everything in and you don't have lifting. They're looking so good. Now it's time to make them look better. I feel like this next step takes the tips from looking like tips to a fully sculpted extension. This is a rubber base from the brand Gel Baby. It's pretty much a builder gel, and I prefer to use this when I need a nude base for my design over gel polish. To apply, I'm going to drop a bead and use circular motions to release it, and then with very light strokes, I try to blend out the edges of the bead to the edges of the nail. Then I take a line art brush, and again with the light stroke, almost barely touching the gel, I try to even it out and get really close to the cuticle because I don't want any of this to touch my skin. Because it's builder gel, it will self-level itself out, so I am putting my hand upside down to allow gravity to pull all of that gel to the surface as well as to the center to help with the apex and the structure, making the nail super strong. I did this to all of my nails, and then we're gonna get ready to jump into the design. I can't wait. Today's nail inspo is from Zaza Nails and Spa. I'm not recreating this exactly, but we are taking lots of inspiration. So this first color is from D&D, and the second color is from the Gel Baby. These colors are just so gorgeous. They're stunning. I'm fully covering my pinky in that dark blue color. It literally only needed one coat. And then I'm going to do my Frenchies. The way I do this is by choosing how high up I want my Frenchie to be, and then I'm going to draw my sidelines, and then I'm going to add that curve to the corners and fill it in. Super easy. It's called the A method. We've got lots of airbrushing to do. I think every nail had some airbrush on it. So I prefer to mix my gel polish and my acetone in a little silicone cup instead of in the airbrush cup. So once it's all mixed up and we add it to the cup, I like to do a practice airbrush on a napkin to make sure everything's coming out super smooth. And then we're going to do an aura on this nail, so that means I'm keeping all that product in the center. I did end up having to do 2 coats because it was such a light color. So for our Frenchie nails, we're going to just add the airbrush to the tip so it looks more ombre from light blue to dark blue. I skipped the ring finger because I was undecided on what to do with it, but once we get to this point, it's time to do some details. So for the pinky, I'm doing an outline with white, trying to keep it off my skin and trying to keep it just really sharp and thin. This ended up being one of my favorite nails. And for the ombre nails, we are doing a top coat first before we go in with 3D lines because I don't want to end up removing any of that blend. So once I cured that, I'm getting ready to use this Rhinestone Glue. I always use this for 3D art because of the consistency. I like to keep the bulk of the product at the very tip of the brush, and this allows me to have the product thicker on the back end of the line and slightly thin it out by using less pressure towards the end of the line. So I drop that bubble of product and then I slightly lighten my pressure so that the line is really thin towards the end. And these turned out so cute, so cute. So for the ring finger, I decided on doing a light blue aura, and instead of doing the 3D flower that the original inspiration picture had, I decided to use blooming gel to make some flowers with the dark blue color. So I'm using the Mia Secrets blooming gel and just doing 5 petals, letting it bloom, and then I cured it right when it was bloomed enough, because if I were to let the first one sit while I worked on the second one, it would just keep blooming and I wouldn't be able to control how much it bloomed. Now we're adding more details. I'm using these little caviar beads, 2 of them on my pointer finger towards the bottom, and then I'm going to use a cluster of them in the center of those flowers on the ring finger. I like to layer my rhinestone glue on top of my top coat, so I have already top coated this ring finger and then added the clusters into that rhinestone gel, and then you're going to see me top coat the pinky. After giving it a full cure, we're going to do a little cuticle oil to bring the skin back to life, and then I'll model them for you. Here they are. I hope you loved these ocean vibes as much as I do. I want to know in the comments, what's your favorite summer color combo? Just look at how these blue tones pop in natural light. It's soft, it's clean, it's summery. I loved this, and I hope you loved watching this video. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And as for the next video, think clean girl vibes with a hint of flashiness. I'll see you there. Bye!